Hey, I wanted to thank everybody for the well wishes and the get well soons and all of the messages that you're thinking about me and my family. Just wanted to let you all know I'm feeling great and I am almost back to normal. Well, I'm almost back to normal health. Hey BookTube, it's Kim at Middle of the Book March, and this is my Bookish week for Saturday, October 16th. And I have it written down right in front of me. Never matters. It doesn't matter. It's usually an anomaly if I remember the date. So welcome. Let's see. I had a pretty decent bookish week last week, and there's a lot of little tidbits of things to talk about. I did finish a book, and I listened to 2 novellas on audio. And the book I finished was Romola, finally, by George Eliot, and this is the second to last novel of George Eliot's that I needed to read for the George Eliot 2021 read-along. Romola is set in Renaissance Italy, which is a complete departure for George Eliot. And this is a book that is her, or I keep saying is, she's not alive anymore. But this book was her favorite that she wrote. And it's also a book that Henry James described as a brilliant novel. And I forget, it may have been Henry James or it may have been somebody else. I wish I had looked into it. When I'm editing, I'll put the name down below of the author who told her, just be careful that your narrative, your writing, does not go over the heads of your readers. And for those of us in current day who have read it, I think we can mostly agree that this is probably her most complex novel, mostly in setting and history and writing style. George Eliot was an intellectual, and she poured so much heart and soul into Romola. The research into Renaissance Italy, the religion, the politics, she took forever. Well, forever. I don't know what forever is to an author, but if I remember correctly, she did a year and a half worth of research to write Romola. And in my opinion, it was probably, maybe she loved Italy that much. I don't know. Maybe she loved the time period. I don't know. Don't know that either. But on the back of this book, it says, quoting her, "There is no book of mine about which I have more thoroughly feel that I swear by every sentence as having been written with my best blood." So if that's not a personal testament to her own book, I don't know what is. This book is about the title character, Romola, who is a young woman. We first meet her, I believe, when she's 18. She lives with and takes care of her blind scholar father, who has, over the years, collected a massive scholarly academic library that he wants to bequeath to her in his name so that he will kind of live on and that his name will be attached to this library and antiquities that he owns. And she cares for him because he's elderly and he's blind. So she's lived a fairly sheltered life. Her mother is not living, and she will write things down for him. She will transcribe for him. She directs him throughout the house. She basically cares for his physical needs, all of that. And so she hasn't really met anybody. The other main character in the book is Tito. He is a young Greek man who has supposedly washed up on the shore after a shipwreck, or has probably survived by hopefully swimming. But he's found in this Italian city in Florence. And very quickly we read about him selling a lot of jewels that he has on his person in order to get some money. And then one thing leads to another. He is brought to the center of town. He is introduced to the residents. The barber, Nello, plays a big part in helping to move Tito forward and get him cleaned up and introduce him to people. Eventually, it is either discovered or Tito claims to be a scholar. So they figure, well, when we should introduce him to Bardi, who is Romola's father, and bring him to his home, and they can talk, and maybe Tito can be useful to him. And one thing leads to another, and Tito and Romola apparently fall in love and get married. Plot ensues from there. I don't want to say too much, but this book is filled with betrayal, cowardice, politics, religion. There are real historical characters that George Eliot has put into the narrative, and she, as she always does, discusses the combination and the contrast with politics and religion, and how much each of them interact with each other, and what that means to this city and this community, what that means for history. There is all kinds of side characters. This is a book with revenge and innocence and naivete. Romola, the growth of Romola alone is extraordinary. And the naive young teenager who falls in love with Tito. And eventually we find out how that relationship, how that marriage deteriorates. And we discover Tito's true character or lack of character. One of the biggest themes in the book is religion, and Savonarola, who is a religious figure in history, the Medicis, so many other, Machiavelli, so many other real-life historical characters are woven into this story, and it's extraordinary. It's difficult to understand sometimes. It's difficult to piece together who are the real historical characters versus the fictional ones that Eliot has made up. The personal storyline I loved, but there's so much that I went into and did a little bit of research in order for me to understand the bigger political issues and religious issues in the novel. So, that all said, it was wonderful, but not my favorite George Eliot novel. It ended well, and I think that's all I have to say. So this is definitely not a George Eliot book that I would suggest to start off with. Absolutely not. No, way too complicated. But once if you're involved and want to read all of Eliot's novels, it's definitely fascinating and gives such an interesting portrait of Renaissance Florence. So the other two books, I listened to two novellas, and for Victober, one of them is At Crichton Abbey by Mary Elizabeth Braddon. This was a novella about a young woman, Sarah Crichton, who, that's her namesake. She becomes poor through the death of her father, and she leaves England in order to work overseas as a governess and a teacher, and she's away for 12 years. She comes back to Crichton Abbey for a family gathering and to spend the winter and Christmas. And this is a novella, a kind of a ghost story, a family curse, revelations about personalities and relationships. It was okay. It was good. I gave it a 3-star. It was an interesting story. I'm typically not interested in ghost stories, but because it was so short, I listened to it on an hour-long drive I took the other day, and it was good. It was entertaining. The other audio novella I listened to on the way back on that same trip was The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. That was awesome on audio, and this is very well-known and famous novella regarding women in Victorian time, and I think it's Victorian. I'll look at that when I do the editing. I didn't even look at that. Charlotte Perkins Gilman is an American author, was an American author, but The Yellow Wallpaper is a portrait of a woman devolving into insanity, or what seems to be insanity. She is married to a doctor. She has just given birth to a baby, so we don't know if she's suffering from postpartum depression or postpartum psychosis. We kind of read that her husband is demanding that she needs some physical recuperation, and he brings her to this country house for 3 months in order for her to recover, so she doesn't have her baby with her. He basically puts her in this large former nursery with kind of like what she describes as almost like a mustard yellow printed wallpaper. And she really doesn't leave that room, and she's consumed with the pattern on the wallpaper. the audio is fantastic because we get to hear her state of mind. She's a journalist. She likes to write in a journal, but she has to hide that from her husband because he has demanded that she does nothing. She stays perfectly still and rests and sleeps and makes sure she eats well. Her meals are provided for her, but he doesn't want her exerting herself in writing in her journal. It is fascinating. Is she being gaslighted? Is she being drugged? Is the wallpaper coming to life? What's happening to her mind? She talks in the novella about not sleeping. Is she going crazy, or is she being driven to it? Is she suffering from postpartum psychosis? Does her husband plan on taking her child away from her and committing her? It is such a fascinating portrayal of the state of women. A woman's occupation. Should she have an occupation? If she's married to a doctor, shouldn't she just stay around the house and do nothing? It's just fascinating, and I absolutely love the audio and hearing the tone of voice in this main character. It was wonderful. Unfortunately, I had one DNF for Victober, and I got about a quarter of the way through A Rogue of One's Own by Evie Dunmore. This is the second in the Extraordinary Woman series by Evie Dunmore, a romance series that's been written in the last year. But it's set in Victorian England in a small group of early English suffragettes, and it's supposed to be a feminist romance. The first book, Bringing Down the Duke, I loved, and it was such a fun read. That one had some fairly steamy bits in it early in the book. This one did not, and I got a quarter of the way through, and I felt a little bit angry and a little creeped out by the main characters who kind of hate each other. And the main male romantic character, who is very sexually aggressive, has a checkered past, is kind of they call him a rogue, but he's kind of very sexually adventurous and aggressive, devil-may-care kind of guy, has a really colorful past, coming upon a young, virginal suffragette leader of this small group. And the dynamic was kind of gross to me. He was kind of playing a game with her that he would eventually bed her. And he bought half of a company in order to be close to her, but also kind of stick it to her. And I was creeped out by this, and I really didn't like the pacing of the novel, the dynamics between the two characters. So I'm putting this one down. I have the third book, which is Portrait of a Scotsman, and I'm not sure I'll get to that one. It's more understandable if you read them in order, but they have to do with different characters. So I don't know, I'll decide about that. It was a Book of the Month Club pick, so I'm not sure what's going to happen with that. I also started watching a series last week, Victoria, and this is a series based on the book Victoria by Daisy Goodwin. And I haven't decided if I like it that much or not. I think I'm on the fourth or fifth show in the series, and it's at the point where Victoria she's still a teenager and she's about to get married. So she's queen and she's about to get married. The setting is, the visuals are beautiful and the atmosphere is really interesting, but I'm not quite sure I like how the story is being told. And the main character who plays Victoria, I think, is excellent. So we'll see. I think I'll continue with that. But I tend to watch that late at night, and I've been falling asleep before the entire show of that one show is over. I'm not sure if I can get through it. The other thing I wanted to show you that I was so thrilled about, and I only discovered this through Instagram with Leo from A Little Book Life and Cover Talks Instagram pages, which I will link below. I found this gorgeous first edition copy from Restless Books Publishing, and this is Middlemarch. Look at this cover. I just am beside myself at how gorgeous it is. And this is the back. I saw a picture, I think it might have been on Leo's page, I don't remember. But look at these illustrations. Oh, good gracious, those are gorgeous. And they're throughout the book, at the chapters, chapter breaks and chapter headings. Oh, wow, look at this. I am beside myself at how gorgeous this volume is. And, you know, I think I showed you before, I collect different versions of Middlemarch, and I could not wait to get my hands on this one, and I did. It's just beautiful. So, Restless Books, I think they're based in New York. Let me double check that. Yep, Brooklyn, New York. This is the, I saw it right on the publishing page, first Restless Books paperback edition, September 2021. It's brand new. I absolutely love it. Love, love, love. What am I currently reading? Very quickly, I'm currently reading Lady Audley's Secret by Mary Elizabeth Braddon with Britta Bowler for Victober. I am working my way through Felix Holt by George Eliot. So far, just a little hint, maybe a spoiler. I absolutely love this book. I didn't think I would, but I'm loving it so far. I am continuing to pick away at George Eliot, Voice of a Century by Frederick R. Carl. This is a very long, comprehensive biography. And I think that's it. Oh, and I am also listening to the audiobook of Alice in Wonderland, narrated by Sally Field. It's so good so far. I just started it. And what else? Oh, okay. I DNF'd A Rogue of One's Own, and I had a buddy read that I had to cancel. My buddy reader and I decided to cancel it because we just did not have the space or the time. So that opened up a little bit of space in my October, and I decided to pull out Lives Lost by Britta Bolt instead of reading it in November, which was on my November nonfiction November TBR. I'm going to read it now. So I'm going to start Lives Lost pretty soon, and I might have, this is only the 16th, so I still have a good couple of weeks in the month to add some more books in there, which I'm really excited about. I go back to work on Monday, which means I will have a bunch of time for audiobooks. So I've gathered some audiobooks to listen to. I've been finding some really good novellas, and I have very quickly learned I am not a short story fan, so I've been kind of skipping over short story collections, but I love essay collections, I love memoir, I love nonfiction on audio, and I love classics on audio. But because it's Victober and I've been reading a bunch of classics, I'm looking at the nonfiction, I'm looking at essays and memoirs and that type of thing. And I think I found some good ones, so maybe I can listen to a couple of really good books in the car on my way to work and back from work. That's about it for me. We're doing really well. My husband's planning on going back to work on Monday as well. He had pneumonia, COVID pneumonia. He's doing much better, still has somewhat of a cough, but he's feeling so much better. And we're really happy to be at this stage where it's like we got through it. And, it was scary for a little bit. So I hope you all are doing well. I hope if you've had it or have it, you're recovering, you're recovered. And I know how it feels. I know how you feel. Let me know in the comments below what you think of any of the books, or if you've read any of them, or if you're planning on it, or if any of them look good. And I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye, everybody.